Hey guys, this is God of Politics and welcome back to a brand new video. But before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also join the Discord that is linked down in the description. But in today's video, I'm going to be doing a video that I will be doing monthly. Every month I'll start doing it more often as the election gets closer, but now it is July and I'm going to be doing my updated July 2020 election prediction between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. So if you were here at the beginning of the month, I did my battleground map. My battleground map is the state of the race at that time of the video that had been made at the time. This is a prediction for November, so I like to separate it because I feel like, things can easily change come November, and while we can't predict everything that's going to come November, we can predict the general trend of who's going to go up, who's going to go down, and just watch the video to find out what that answer will be. I'll have the video about the battleground map linked in the cards as well as linked down in the description, so you can see that, as well as you can look at the playlist of all the election predictions I've been doing for each month, seeing how these ratings have changed. But to start with this video, I'll be doing the safe states first. So as for Donald Trump's safe states, he will win Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Alaska, North Dakota, South Dakota, all of Nebraska except for the 2nd District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Missouri, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Indiana. So that's 125 safe electoral votes for Donald Trump. And then for Joe Biden, I do believe he will win Washington, Oregon, California, New Mexico, Hawaii, Illinois, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, D.C., and Maine's 1st District. So that is 188 safe electoral votes for Joe Biden and 125 safe electoral votes for Donald Trump. So getting into these likely states first for Donald Trump, I do believe that he will win Maine's 2nd District by a likely margin. If you look at Maine's 2nd District, it went to him by a safe margin in 2016. I don't believe he's going to win as much, but this is a very rural area, a very white area that he should be able to win quite easily. So I do think that will be in the likely margin. But that's actually the only district or state that is in the likely margin for Donald Trump. There's a lot of states that, he may have lean margins, tilt margins, whatever, but that's the only state that's in the likely margin, actually. As for Joe Biden, I do believe that he will win the state of Colorado first by a likely margin. If you look at 2016, Hillary Clinton underperformed the polls here. She won by 5.5 percentage points. This is a state that overall has been trending towards the Democratic column here. You have a lot of suburban areas. You have a lot of Latino areas, a lot of progressive voters here. Bernie Sanders did do very well here in the primary, but I do believe Joe Biden is going to be able to win it quite easily, as it is a state in which it has been trending towards the Democratic column for quite a while now. Another likely margin state for Joe Biden is actually going to be the state of Virginia. If we look at the state of Virginia here, you'll have the Nova counties in the northern Virginia area that are making the area so blue so quickly. If we look at, 2008, that was the first time that the state had been blue since 1964, and it has not looked back since. Hillary Clinton did win the state in 2016 with the help of Tim Kaine, you could argue, but really, Hillary Clinton would have won it quite easily anyway. And now this is a state you can even argue Joe Biden would win by a safe margin. I think, Joe Biden will end up winning it by around 8 to 9% when it's all said and done. But Virginia is a state that has been trending towards the Democratic column for quite a while, and I think that will be reflected by the results from this election. And I also do believe that Maine at large will be an area that is going to go to the Democrats by a lengthy margin. If you look at 2016, Democrats did win this area by 3 percentage points. And while I do think, Maine's 2nd District is going to trend a little bit back to the blue column, Maine's 1st District will probably stay about the same. That'll make it so that Joe Biden will be able to win Maine at large by a likely margin there. So after the likely margin states, Joe Biden is at 212 electoral votes. Donald Trump is at 126, but he will get a big boost from the lean margin states, one of which is the state of Texas. Texas and its 38 electoral votes is a big prize in the 2020 election. If you look at the trends in this state, it is trending towards the Democratic column undoubtedly, but, Democrats do still, Republicans still have time to keep this state and keep its big prize of 38 electoral votes. And while in the future they're most likely not going to have those 38 electoral votes or more electoral votes in the future, they do have it for now, and I do believe they'll be able to win it by a lean margin. The suburbs are going to trend Democrat, but I don't think they'll be able to trend Democrat enough to overcome the strengths Donald Trump has in the rural areas there. So The next lean margin state is going to be the state of Iowa. If you look at the state of Iowa, it's a state that used to be very blue. If you look in 2012, Obama won the state by 6 points in 2012. And in 2016, Trump won the state almost by a safe margin. I do believe that it is going to trend quite a bit back towards the Democratic column. If you look at the midterms, for example, Democrats won the popular vote quite easily in the state of Iowa. And, the fact that there are 3 Democratic congressmen in this district, congressmen and congresswomen, is going to help the Democrats at the top of the ballot with Joe Biden. Also, Joe Biden is a better candidate for the state than Hillary Clinton, along with the state of Ohio. Joe Biden is an alright candidate. He has some working class appeal that Hillary Clinton did not have. That is going to help him in a state like Ohio. And while it may not necessarily be enough to be able to win the state, it is going to make it a lot closer, especially compared to 2016. And the lean margin states for the Democrats, first of all, I do believe Nevada will be a state that will go by a lean margin. Joe Biden does have some faults with Latino voters. He has not been that great with Latino voters, but he has been improving in some respects with Latino voters. While the enthusiasm is not that high, their turnout rate is only around 50% anyway, so it's going to be lower regardless. It is very liberally skewed electorate, but I do believe that Joe Biden is going to be able to win it by a lean margin, probably by around similar to what Hillary Clinton won it by last time, around 2.5 percentage points, something like that. I also do believe Minnesota will go by a lean margin. Minnesota is a state in which you see the northern areas, the legacy Democrats, going towards the Republicans, but you do have the suburban areas of Minneapolis, St. Paul that are trending more Democratic. So they are kind of a bit of a trade-off. I think the suburbs will outpace those legacy Democrat trends a little bit, making it so that the state goes by around 4 percentage points, also due to the fact that Joe Biden is a better candidate than Hillary Clinton for this area. But in the long run, this state is a state that is probably going to go to the Republicans at some point due to those legacy Democrats in the north that used to be, consistently Democrat and are now going to the Republican side. The next thing I do believe will go by a lean margin is the state of Michigan. If we look at the state of Michigan, you could argue it's kind of a fluke. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a fluke. I think it's a sign of a larger trend. But I do believe that Michigan, it really did not have to go in 2016 to the Republican column. It only went by 11,000 votes, 0.2 percentage points. I don't believe that Joe Biden is going to be able... Joe Biden is not going to lose this state. I don't believe. I think it would take something really big for Donald Trump to be able to win it again. Donald Trump would basically have to get it so that Joe Biden only won the popular vote by around 2 percentage points, which really at this point does not look very easy to do, and I don't think it's going to be very easy to do come November either. But Michigan is a state in which, Democrats have done historically very well here. It's controlled by Democrats at the local level, the state level, and they have 2 Democratic senators at the national level. So this is mostly a Democratic state, and I do believe that will be reflected when Joe Biden does win it by a lean margin. Same thing for Pennsylvania. Joe Biden has a lot of connection in this state. He does live near the state. He was born in this state. He has a lot of working class connections to this state, and that is going to help him. The polls have been quite good for him. If we look at even some Republican polls, Joe Biden's been doing very well in some of these areas, and so I do believe that he will be able to win Pennsylvania by just a little bit less than Michigan, but there is even a possibility that Pennsylvania votes to the left of what Michigan votes by, so that's quite an interesting thing. And then the final lean margin state for Joe Biden is going to be the state of New Hampshire, which I do believe will go by a lean margin. If you look at New Hampshire in the 2016 election, it was the closest state in terms of the raw vote. In 2020, I don't believe it's going to be as close. I do believe Joe Biden, even with his he didn't do as well in the New Hampshire primary, I do believe he is going to be able to win it quite easily overall. But, it is possible that Joe Biden does lose ground in the state. Donald Trump is going to hold a rally here. There's less voters here, less voters to persuade. A rally does help a lot more in some of these states. So there's a possibility that Donald Trump can win this state, but as of now, I will put it at lean Democrat. So overall, after the lean margin states, Joe Biden is at 268. Donald Trump is at 188. So that's actually quite an interesting result. Joe Biden very close to the 270 mark that he does need for a victory there. Getting into these tilt margin states, if we want to do the tilt Republican states first, I do believe North Carolina will be a tilt Republican state. The convention being here was going to help them a lot more than it will now due to some people not being at the convention, some parts of the convention not actually being in North Carolina here. And so I do believe that Donald Trump is going to win the state of North Carolina when it's all said and done. Those rural areas that Donald Trump does have some room to gain in will, outnumber those suburban areas that Democrats will gain in the Raleigh areas, the Winston-Salem areas, those kinds of areas. And North Carolina is quite an interesting state in terms of the fact that it hasn't really had a uniform trend to either party in the past couple of years. And so I do believe that Donald Trump will be able to win the state, albeit narrowly, maybe by around 1 percentage point, which at this point I would give the victory to Cal Cunningham, as Tom Tillis is running a couple points behind Donald Trump because of that. But as of now, I'll put North Carolina at tilt Republican. And same thing with Georgia, actually. Some people might be surprised with this, but you cannot underestimate the suburban trends. If you're not familiar with this, not college-educated white voters are trending towards the Democratic column in droves, and you can see that across the board in many states. Even in states that trended heavily Republican in 2016, like Michigan and Ohio, still had Democratic areas in these suburbs or areas that used to be Republican now becoming heavily Democrat, or at least more Democrat. And that's the same thing you're seeing in Georgia with the Atlanta suburbs, the Cobb County, Forsyth County, Gwinnett County, that are becoming very Democratic, and they did not used to be. And Donald Trump does not have much room to gain in those rural areas, so I do believe Joe Biden is going to be able to gain, especially in those Atlanta suburbs, but it will just not be enough. Donald Trump did win the state by 5.5 in 2016. I do believe Donald Trump will win it by around 1 when it's all said and done, but this is certainly a state that is in play that some people do not realize. I said it's the dark horse of the selection, and I still do believe that. And then finally, I do believe Nebraska's second. This is a very suburban district, but it also has some exurbs, which will help Republicans be able to win it very narrowly. If we look at Arizona here, I do believe that is going to be a tilt Democrat state. You have, again, the suburban trends in Maricopa County that are going to make the state more Democratic. You have the Senate race here that is going to help Joe Biden, having Mark Kelly at the ticket against Martha McSally, which is going to help Joe Biden. And, overall, Joe Biden's doing very well in polls and trends and fundraising, and I do believe that he will be able to win Arizona, albeit narrowly. I also believe he'll be able to win Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a state that you could argue is trending red more than any of these other states. Out of Minnesota, Michigan, Pennsylvania, you have to exclude Ohio and Iowa. But Wisconsin is a state in which you do see, trends towards towards the Republican column. But if we look at that Supreme Court race, for example, you look at some of these, Racine County, some of these counties in the South, it's going to come down to those wow counties. How Republican are they? If Republicans are not able to win them by large margins, they're going to get outpaced by the fact that you have the Madison and Milwaukee areas that control much of the politics in this state. And so I do believe that Wisconsin overall is going to go to Democrat, but this is a state that could easily go Republican as well. Finally, the final state, I do believe Florida is going to go to the Democratic column. If we look at Florida here, this is a state that does love incumbents, especially Republican incumbents, but the polls, which were accurate in 2016, have not really been good for Donald Trump at all, and I don't believe they're going to be good in the future either. And the one thing that's making Joe Biden do so well in Florida is the fact that older voters are going away from Joe Biden due to this pandemic that is making it so that Joe Biden's doing a lot better with older voters because of Donald Trump's influence, or I guess emphasis on reopening the economy. And so that is going to hurt, Democrats. It's going to hurt Republicans at the state level, and it's going to hurt Donald Trump at the national level. And so looking at the overall map here, we can see Joe Biden is at 318 electoral votes. Donald Trump is at 220 electoral votes. This would be a sweeping victory for Joe Biden to make him the 46th president of the United States. So thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also join the Discord that is linked down in the description. So thank you all guys for watching, and I will see you guys later.